It is a pleasure to welcome you here at the Österreichische Nationalbank for our today's event on wealth inequality. And the subject of this evening will be wealth inequality from a theoretical perspective, from a historical perspective, and from an empirical perspective, namely from a perspective from the USA. Today we had already quite long discussions on the issue of wealth inequality. As you know, the HFCS, the Household Finance and Consumption Survey, was published recently. Now the data are out, accessible for researchers, and research will start now, and all the questions are open. We have heard an interesting presentation from the ECB focusing on the long tail from the 95th percentile till the end. Because as you know, in our survey-based research, we are very bad at the right end of the distribution, namely in our knowledge on the rich, on the super rich. So looking on this issue seems to bring us back to questions Professor Schürz will later on discuss, back to the times of Plato, linking wealth and power. So here something is changing. Wealth inequality seems to be, again, an academic research subject. Inequality is not longer understood only as income inequality, but as the data is now available and there will be more waves in the future of the HFCS research on wealth inequality, on the specific characteristics of wealth inequality may start. This will not be the subject of today's evening. We will rather focus on sometimes neglected topics, but that are of utmost importance. And I see similarities in our two speakers. I may introduce to you Professor Schürz, who will give the first presentation, and then Arthur Kennigl from the Fed, he will give the second one. The similarities, I do not mean age or maybe that you both are recognized and internationally well-known economists, a theory economists and an empirical economist. No, what I mean are 3 points. You seem to follow in your research over decades your own ways. You look at things other people don't look at. And so for example, your work on Piero Sraffa in times of neoclassical economics was not the one everybody would have done. And from Arthur Kennigl, he has this nice research paper, what I consider as, for your work, very typical. How do we know if we aren't looking? And in a way, you are looking for 30 years now, because Arthur Kennigl in the US is the one who is doing the survey on wealth, which is worldwide the best one. I guess this is no exaggeration. And he is doing that right from the beginning. When you finished in '84, your PhD, no? So every 3 years, the Fed is publishing on the wealth distribution of private households. And I may say personally, we have learned extremely from you. You know that, but I want to mention it. The Austrian HFCS wouldn't have been possible without the guidance of Arthur, who showed us how important it is to look on things we would have forgotten. Interviewer training, all these other issues of a good sampling strategy and things like this. This is the one thing, that both of them look and focus on issues other people wouldn't do. The other thing I consider as rather similar, that you follow a rather broad approach. So you take from which discipline you consider the ideas as relevant. So you combine different approaches. And the third one, I guess, is that both of you have capacity to make complex things rather understandable. Professor Schürz will publish his new book on Geschichte des ökonomischen Denkens, I guess, rather shortly. When?
July, August.
In July, August. And he understands to make it's a kind of mission impossible. You will do in 20 minutes, and I will stop now not to take your time. But he will try to focus in 20 minutes on the work of major economists, on their contribution to the issue of wealth distribution. We will have first a presentation from Professor Schürz, 20 minutes, directly afterwards the one from Arthur Kenikel, and then we should have extensive time for discussion. Later on, we would like to invite you for snacks outside. So Professor Schürz, I'm very glad that you accepted our invitation.